Kak Fazli, saya buka pintu saya buat kelas. Panas sangat, tak boleh tahan. Kan? Okay, so let's start with what we did in the last class. Okay, so practically for today we will touch or we will recap on what we did in the last class. Okay, and for today, because I will be holding a Viva later, so I will stop at 8:45. So with some example for you to do, and then we will begin back at 9:15. Okay. Right, so let's move on. Hold on. Okay, so let's recap back what we did in the last class. Okay, so if you can still recall, okay, so we did touch on the network analysis, particularly on precedence diagram. But talking about precedence diagram, you still have to understand how the critical path works. Okay, so especially the CPM. So precedence is basically we are using the activity on a not mode, and CPM we call the activity on arrow. Okay, so I think I did discuss in the previous recording the difference between activity on not and activity on arrow. Okay, so your activity on not is basically much more flexible, having different relationship. You can allow for what do we call it, lag to occur. Okay, so FS2 for example, so you allow lag and so on. Okay. Okay, so we have relationship of okay, sorry, you will go here. Okay, so the basic annotation is we have the early start, earliest finish for each activity. That will be the forward pass, and then once we complete the forward pass, then we can start with the backward pass that will introduce the latest start and latest finish. Okay, and then we have total float and we have free float. So let me check. Did I go through total float and free float with you? Did I or didn't I? Did I or didn't I?
No.
No, right? I suppose I haven't gone through yet. Let me just check the YouTube view. Then I'll see whether you guys have gone through the recording. 41. By right, tak semua yang gone through the recording. Okay, I will need to re-emphasize here back. Okay, so why I produce the recording so that you can actually go through before we move on to the next class. Okay, so if you did not go through the recording in the last class, you will not be able to capture what I'm talking in this class. Okay, so for those who have gone through the recording, thank you, because at least you have prepped yourself to this class. If you have not gone through the recording, might as well you do not enter this class because you'll be just wasting your time. Okay, so I think that's very important. If you skip one recording, you will miss quite a lot, especially when I talk in the last class about how to calculate the forward pass and backward pass. So for those who have not gone through the recording, might as well you just don't need to enter this class. Okay, so because you will be wasting your time. So it is pretty disappointing because basically I think with recording you can just view it anytime. Okay, so it is at the pleasure of your own time, your own space, you can just go through it, but yet not everyone has gone through it. Okay, so it's rather disappointing. So for those who have not gone through it, probably you think that okay, you can actually catch up towards the test period and so on. I'm not sure because I think why do you want to waste your time, right? Okay, so I think whenever a time has been assigned to you, 2 hours, then just make full use of it. So no point holding things back and you have a lot of different subjects and then you get stressed out and you think that the whole thing has been lumped into you. So okay, just a morning babbling, but I think it's important. So before you enter my class, make sure that you have gone through the previous recording. So if not, if I don't think it's important, might as well I don't put the recording up. Okay. All right. So move on back to what we have gone through in the last class. Okay. So I did touch on the forward pass. I did touch on the backward pass, and I think this exercise that we discussed this, okay, but we haven't gone through this. Okay, so I think let's discuss on this to clear up the forward and backward pass, and then we'll move on to total float and also free float. Okay, so anyone have done this exercise? Probably, do you have example with you that you can actually show to the class? Anyone who have done it in a proper manner that could be shown in the class as an example? No. Hold on, Let me just check. Okay. All right. So I think let's just go through it together. If you have not done it in how to say, in a presentable manner, so let's just go through it together. Okay, so for the precedence diagram, okay, so your activity would be on the knot, and our emphasis is basically starting with the forward pass. Okay, so your forward pass would distinguish your early start and your early finish time. All right, so let's start with 0. Okay, so your 0 will be the earliest start time for A, plus 3, you get your early finish of 3. Okay, so, and look into the relationship when you calculate those. Okay, so for this, basically, it means activity B will start together with activity A. Okay, so start 3 after 3 days. So activity B will start together with activity A after 3 days. Hold on, someone is trying to enter. Okay. All right. So, okay. So if we start 3, okay. So B will start together with A after 3 days. So when did A start? Earlier start time. Okay. So 0 plus 3, B will start at 3. Okay. So plus 4, B will finish 7. Okay, so if usually without any annotation on the line, so it will be a normal finish to start relationship. Okay, so B finish, C will start. Okay, so B finish 7, C start 7, plus 5, C would finish 12. So normal finish to start here, so 7. Plus 6, D will finish 13. Okay, so moving forward, usually we will compare the same annotation. Okay, so if you are finding the early start for F, comparing both early start for F. Okay, and we will pick the bigger one so that we do not want to overlap with the activity which has not completed. So C, okay, finish 12, F will start 12. Just place it in a small manner here. And D will finish 13, F will start after 4 days. So finish to start 4. So F will start 4 days after D has finished. So 13 plus 4, you get 17. Okay, so that you do not start before activity complete. Okay, so we will pick the bigger one, 17. Okay, so 7.
Sorry. I can see the calculation. I tak nampak yang doktor ada contoh-contoh ke?
Alah, ya ke? Okay, maybe we'll just do in search. So, okay, hold on. So this one, it was not written in your slide?
Yes, only have 0 and 3.
Okay, all right. So let's begin here back. Okay, so activity B will start together with activity A after 3 days. Okay, so hold on, let me just change the. Okay, so activity B will start 3 days after activity A has started. Activity A started 0 plus 3, activity B will start 3. Okay, so start to start. So when it's start to start, why you put in start to start? Because you want activity B to start together with activity A after 3 days. That's your intention. You don't want activity A to complete, baru activity B start. It might take a long time. Okay, so usually we place in start to start so that it could start simultaneously, except that where you want to introduce lag, then you introduce lag. Okay, so the lag will be positive 3. So 3 plus 4, you get 7. Okay, so moving forward, 7. Without annotation is a normal finish to start. B finish 7. C will start 7 plus 5. C will finish 12. And D will start 7 plus 6. D will finish 13. Okay, so normal finish to start here. And also finish to start with 4 days here. Moving forward, okay, so you have two numbers going on here. You will always compare the same number. You can't compare early finish. For example, your calculation here is early finish, your calculation here early start, tak boleh. So compare the same item. If you're comparing early start, here also you will compare the early start. Okay, for F. So for C, finish 12, F will start 12. So just place it small here. And for D to F, finish to start 4, basically meaning to say that F will start 4 days after D finish. D finish 13 plus 4, F will start 17. Okay, so moving forward, we will choose the larger one so that it does not overlap with activities which has not completed. If you place 12 here, this activity has not completed. You akan overlap the activity. We don't want that. So at least you place 17 here. It allows every activity to be completed. Semua selamat. Okay, so when you go forward, basically, we choose a larger one. Okay, so the largest. So 17 plus 1, 18. Hold on, Okay, so from C to E will be finish to finish 2. Okay, so meaning to say that activity E will finish here 2 days after activity C finish. Okay, so finish to finish. Activity E will finish 2 days after activity C finish. So 12 plus 2, activity E will finish 14. 14 minus 2 days, activity E will start 12. Okay, so moving forward, okay, so you have finished to start relationship from here. E finish, G will start. Or you have finished to finish relationship. F finish, G will finish together. Tapi you need to compare the same thing. Okay, so activity E finish, activity G will start 14. Okay, so early finish of G will be 14. Activity F finish to finish together, meaning to say that activity F finish 18. Okay, activity G will finish 18. Just place it small here, 18. Minus 5 days. Okay, activity G will start 13. So the relationship from here. Okay, so the relationship from here is finish to finish. So you need to calculate finish to finish first. Okay, so F finish 18, G will finish 18. Minus 5, G will start 13. Okay, and comparative with the early start from here 14. This is the one you will compare. You cannot compare 14 and 18 because it's the finish from here. You need to compare the same item. So here is 14 and here will be 13. So the larger one will be 14. So hence G early start, we will use D14. Plus 5 days, G will finish 19. Okay, so that there is no overlapping happening. So far, any question?
No.
Okay, so if all fine, we can get back with backward pass. Okay, so your backward pass will introduce your late finish and your late start. Horriblenya.
Doktor,
Yes.
boleh ulang part yang G tadi?
Okay, so for activity G, right? Okay, so how we are going to come up with the early start and early finish? You need to take into account to both of this relationship. Okay, so do it one by one. So the first relationship is finish to start. Okay, so activity E finish, activity G will start. So meaning to say that early start for G will be 14. Put it small first because dia ada junction macam ni. When you have such junction, you need to compare dulu which would be bigger so that you don't overlap the activities. Okay, so that's why, hold on . Okay, so that's why we start with activity E first. Okay, evaluate one by one. So activity E finish 14, activity G will start 14. Okay, and from here, finish to finish, activity F to G, it means that activity G will finish together with activity F. Okay, so your relationship, you akan isi ni dulu, finish to finish. Okay, so 18. So make it small because we want to compare which is bigger. That's the main thing here. You don't want to overlap activities and simply select. You need to select with activities which are actually allowing all activities to complete. Okay, so finish to finish. So you will finish to finish 18 here. Minus 5 days, G will start 13 from this relationship. Okay, so from this FF relationship, G will start 13. But from E relationship, G will start 14. Okay, so you will compare 13 and 14 because you need to compare the same item. Okay, so to get the early start from this relationship, you need to calculate the finish dulu because that is the relationship. So finish to finish. G will finish together with F. F finish 18 minus 5 day 13. So once you get 13, early start for G, compare it with this relationship here. So this relationship here, the early start is 14. So hence 14 will allow all activities to complete. Okay, so if you put 13, hold on . So imagine if you select 13, because you are taking into this relationship, activity ni belum habis lagi ni. You finish 14, but you want to start activity G13. They overlap. Cannot. So that's why you choose a bigger one that takes into account, akan cover both activities, tak ada overlapping. So it will be 14. Okay, so 14 is bigger. So hence 14 plus 5, 19. Faham tak?
Faham.
Okay, so moving backwards. Okay, so 19 minus 5 days, 14. Okay, so finish to finish relationship. So 19 finish, your F will finish also 19. Finish to finish. Okay, so G finish 19, F will finish 19. Minus 1 day, F will finish 18. Okay, so coming backwards, we need to start. If G start 14, E will finish 14. Minus 2 days, 12. Okay, so coming backwards here, finish to start 4. Okay, so F start 18. Minus 4 days, D will finish 14. Minus 6, D will start 8. Okay, so coming backwards at the junction, you will choose a smaller one. Evaluate both first. Okay, so and choose a smaller one. So coming backwards here, finish to finish 2. So activity C, finish here, the finish, 2 days before activity E finish. So 14 minus 2, the finish here will be 12. Just place it small first because you need to compare with here as well. So 14 minus 2, C will finish 12. Or from here, finish to start a relationship. F start 18, C will finish 18. Coming backwards, you will choose a smaller one, which is 12. So you can take this lah. Okay, so 12. This is smaller, then coming here, 18. So 12 minus 5, you will get 7. Coming backwards, okay, so normal finish to start both. D finish starts 8, B will finish 8. Okay, so here 8. Or C starts 7, B will finish 7. In comparison, 7 is smaller, so hence we use 7. Minus 4, you get 3. So start to start 3. 3 minus 3, okay, you get 0. Start to start. So your concern is to answer the start to start, to address the start to start. 3 minus 3, you get 0. 0 plus 3, then you finish A with 3. Okay? All right. So far, any question on that? For those have you have done the exercise, did you get the same answer?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, moving forward, basically we will talk about total float. Okay, so total float is basically, okay, let me just put it here, yeah. Okay, let's try here. Okay, so total float is where your late finish. Hi, good morning, Dr. Day.
Morning, Dr. Siran.
Yeah, so I'm having class, so I'll get back to you in a while. I think because I have set the Viva at 9, so I think they will be coming in around 8:50 more or less. Is that okay? Okay, so total float, okay, so it's basically your late finish minus your early finish, or your late start minus early start. Okay, so as what mentioned here. Okay, so total float is basically your late finish minus your early finish, or your late start minus early start. It should give you the same number. Okay, and your total float would determine your critical path. Okay, so simply said, if you see anything with the same number, okay, so here and here and here and here, so basically that is your critical path. Okay, so you can see that activity A to activity B to activity E to activity G. So that is your critical path. Why? Because your total float here is 0. Okay, so for example, activity A, your total float will be late finish minus your early finish. Okay, so 3 minus 3, you get 0. Activity B, same, is either late start minus early start or late finish minus early finish. So usually is we take either one. Okay, so usually I'll just use late finish minus early finish. So 5 minus 5 get 0, 11 minus 11 you get 0, and 14 minus 14 you get 0. Anything that starts from the beginning until the end, okay, so your total float along the line is 0, then that will be a critical path for this project. Meaning to say that any activity, okay, so along this critical path, if you delay it for 1 day, it will affect your total project duration. Okay, so for example, if you delay activity B, the completion, okay, so you're supposed to complete the early finish by 5, but you complete it by 6, 7. you will definitely change the project duration. Okay, so your total float actually shows you which activities that you should emphasize on. It is critical. So you need to be careful, and these activities are where you need to monitor. Okay, so this is critical part. Okay, how about other activities? So for example, activity C. What is the total float for activity C?
3.
3. Okay, so 8 minus 5, your total float will be 3. And then activity D, the total float will be 13 minus 11, you get 2. Okay, so activity F, your total float will be 13 minus 6, you will get 13 minus 9. Okay, so you get, how much is that? 5, 4. Okay, and then you have G, 14 minus 14, you get 0. Okay, so that's the total float. So that's the calculation for total float. So in simple manner for this activity, okay, so what is the total float for this project? What is the critical path for this project?
A, B, C, E, G.
Okay, so A, B, C, E, G. Okay, so in simple, because you can see that your late finish minus your early finish, you get 0. Okay, so this would be your critical path. Okay, but the total float here, okay, so you can actually calculate for activity D, 14 minus 1, 14 minus 13, you get 1. Okay, 19 minus 8, you get 1. Okay, so which means your project or your activity can be delayed 1 day before it affects your total duration. But for these activities along the critical path, you cannot delay even for 1 day. If you delay any one of it for 1 day, you will change the total project duration. So that's why it's critical. Okay, so find any question? Okay, so that's again. Okay, so that's on total float. Okay, so next we have free float. Okay, I will talk on this free float once we get back at 9:15. Okay, so meanwhile, let me just give you some example to be done. Okay, so meanwhile, let me get you some example. Okay, so I'll show it in the screenshot for you to actually do it within these 30 minutes. Okay, so we'll meet again at 9:15. Okay, so after I've actually run the Viva, and we'll discuss further on the free float. Free float is a little bit tricky compared to total float. Total float is pretty straightforward, but free float ni is a little bit tricky, so make sure you come back at 9:15. Okay, so meanwhile, I will not close this slide. So I will place one example here so that in the meantime of 30 minutes, you can do on the exercise. Okay. All right. Just close.
Morning, Dr. Sumaila.
Okay, everyone, can you see this slide?
Yes.
Okay. Can you try to come up with a solution? We'll discuss at 9:15. Okay, so just try to come up with a solution on this slide and we'll see how it goes. Okay, I think it's a very simple calculation and very direct. So, but let's see. Okay, so try to conduct on this. Okay, welcome back everyone. Okay, so for the example, okay, so have everyone done the example as required? Kejap did not hear.
Okay, result and discussion for load and displacement. There is a graph.
Okay, so everyone, let's get back here. So have you done the examples?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just open the slide. Okay, so let's just try to create this example and recalculate it back. I'm sorry because today I have like too many things at the same time. So I have the class, I have the Viva, I have this meeting with PNC. Oh my God. Okay. Okay, so let us first draw the network. Okay, so you have activity A, which is to establish the site. And then we have activity B, which is will follow through from activity A. Okay, so the precedence is activity A. And then you have piling. The precedence is activity B, which is site clearance. And then you have the pile cap and ground beam, which the precedence will be activity C. Okay, so logically, you will start your site by establishing the site. Okay, and then once you establish the site, you conduct site clearance. Okay, and then you will start, once you clear the site, you can actually conduct the pile and also pile cap and also ground beam. So you can see that the relationship given here, okay, so activity B and activity A, for example, activity A will start 6 days after activity B, activity A completed. Okay, so basically it is in the line. Okay, so activity A, there is no precedence. Activity B, the precedence will be SS6 and also FF with B. So meaning to say that SS6 and also FF. Lain yang sama ya. So meaning to say that activity B will start 6 days after activity A started, but they must finish together. Okay, so before they can move on. So activity B, okay, so the precedence will, activity C, the precedence will be activity B, SS4 and FF6. And activity D, the precedent will be activity C, SS6, FF2. Okay. Okay, so let's start calculating the forward and also backward pass. So basically in simple rule, if it's one line, all activities will be critical, but we'll go through later. But if it's simple one line, all activities will be critical in this project. Okay, let's start with activity A. Hold on, let me see if I can do drawing. Okay, so let's start with 0. Okay, so early start of the activity 0. Plus duration 10, you get the early finish 10. Okay, activity B. What is the earliest start for activity B? What did you get? Any answers? Activity B, what will be the earliest start that you get? 8. 6. Others? Semua 6.
6.
Okay. All right. So you have two relationship going in. Okay. Look into the first one first. Okay. So activity activity B will start together with activity A after 6 days. So 0 plus 6, you get 6. Okay. Plus 6, you get 12. Okay. And activity A will finish together with activity B, second relationship. Okay, so second relationship, finish to finish. Activity A will finish 10, activity B will finish 10. Minus 6 days, activity B will start 4. Okay, so if you choose 4, it will overlap with activity, this one, this relationship. So hence, moving forward, you will choose a bigger one. So it is correct that you choose 6 plus 6, you will finish activity B by 12. Okay, so similarly, this relationship, you have start to start 4 and you have finish to finish 6. Okay, so what is your answer for this one?
Ten.
10. Okay, so 10. Any other answer from 10? No, Okay, so moving forward, you have two relationships, start to start 4. Activity C will start 4 days after activity B started. So 6 plus 4, you get 10. Plus 10, you get 20. Okay, or you have another relationship which is finish to finish 6. So C will finish 6 days after B finish. So 12 plus 6, C will finish 18. Minus 10, you will start 8. Okay, so the larger one to accommodate both relationship will be 10 and also 20. Okay, and for activity D, what is the answer that you got?
16.
16, Okay, so first relationship start 6. Okay, so activity C start 10 plus 6. Activity D will start by 16. Plus 8, you get 24. Okay, and the other relationship is finish to finish 2. Okay, so activity C start 20 plus finish 20 plus 2, D will finish 22. Minus 8, you will get 18. Kejap, berapa? 22, 14
14.
Okay, 14. So the larger one will be 16 plus 8, you finish 24. Okay, so coming backwards is the same thing. Okay, so 24 minus 8, you get 16. So similarly, you should get the same answer. So, but of course, coming backwards, you will choose a smaller one. Everyone got the same answer?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I think this is pretty simple. So let's go back to the free float. Okay, so done on that. Let's go back to the free float calculation. Okay, so just now we have mentioned about total float, and next we will float. Okay, free float is it involve between relationship. Okay, so for example, okay, so when we are talking about finish to start relationship, your free float is early start of the next activity minus early finish of the current activity. Start to start relationship, early start of the next minus early start of the current. So for example, okay, so let's say we are talking about the free float between finish to finish here. Okay, so free float concerns the time you have between the activity. It has nothing to do with the duration. It has to do with the, okay, so it has to do with the relationship. So for example, when we are talking about, hold on, if we are talking about B to D, okay, so the relationship is finish to finish. The concern is from the time activity B finish before activity D starts. Okay, so that is free float. Okay, so free float relates with how much time do we have between these activities. If it's finished to start, so your calculation of free float will be early start of the next activity minus early start of the current activity. So for example, I'm finding the free float for activity B to activity C. B to C. Okay, I want to see that from the time B finish, because it's a finish to start relationship, from the time B finish, before C starts, ada tak any time period in between? Okay, so from here we can get early start of the next activity, which is activity C, 7, minus early finish of the current activity, which is 7. It shows the free float of 0. Rule of thumb, if your total float is 0, free float definitely 0. Your free float cannot be larger than your total float. Your free float can be the same, can be lower, but cannot be larger than your total float, free float too. Okay, so same goes to here. If we are finding the relationship, or if you're finding the free float for activity B to activity D. Okay, so finish to start relationship. We want to find from the time B finish before D starts. Okay, so 7, early start of the next activity 7, minus early finish of the current activity 7 equals 0. Okay, so this one, early start of the next minus early finish of the current activity you want to look into. That will give you the free float. Okay, let's say we are looking into start to start relationship. For activity A, for example, so free float for activity A, the next activity is only activity B. So only one free float. Okay, so the relationship is start to start. So your concern is start and start. So you want to see whether there are any time gap or time allowance between the start of next activity and the start of current activity. Okay, so early start of next activity minus early start of current activity minus lag. If there is lag, minus the lag. So, oh sorry, this one, it should be 0. Early start of the next activity minus early start of the current activity minus lag. Okay, so that would give you 0. So free float for activity A to B is 0. Okay, so if you look into this, so start to start relationship, okay, early start of the next activity minus early start of the current activity minus lag, if there is lag. Okay, so the next example, let's say we are talking about free finish to finish. Okay, so let's say we are talking about free float for activity C to activity E. Okay, so C to E, the relationship is finish to finish. So you are concerned what is the time frame that you have in between finish and finish. Okay, so if we are looking at activity C, the early finish of the next activity, 14, minus the early finish of current activity, which is 12, minus 2 days lag. Okay, so that will give you 0. Okay, so it's logical because the total float is 0 kat sini. If your total float 0, your free float must be 0. You cannot go more than your total float. Okay, or let's try here, activity D. Okay, so your free float for activity D to activity F. Berapa banyak? What is the free float for activity D to activity F? So what will be your answer?
One.
1. Ada answer? Other than that, any other answer? You should get 1 kan? Okay, 1 ke? Any other answer from that?
Zero.
0? Okay, so you have either 1 or 0. Okay, let's see. Activity D to activity F is a finish to start relationship. Okay, so meaning to say that we want to see, are there any duration between the finish of activity D and the start of activity F? Finish to start. Kita nak tengok, are there any time frame, additional time frame we have? Lepas we do the calculation. So basically free float is based on calculation. You did not introduce the lag. Lag is where you introduce. As a planner, you place that, okay, you want 4 days lag. But free float occurs when you have different junction as such. So you ada masa yang lebih. Why? Because you have selected the bigger one here. Remember, when we select a bigger one, the other activity will have additional duration in between. That's why you can get free float in between though. Okay, so finish to start, basically activity D finish, activity F start. You want to see that are there any time gap in between. Okay, so early start of the next activity, 17, minus early finish of the current activity, which is 13. Okay, so minus 4 days lag. Okay, so you should get actually 0. Okay, so free float for activity D would be 0. Okay, let's try one more for activity F. So what's the free float from activity F to activity G? So what's the free float from activity F to G?
One.
One.
Okay, 1. So because your constant is finish and finish. Okay, so are there any time frame in between both activities when they are in a relationship of finish? So early finish of the next activity minus early finish of the current activity. Okay, so 19 minus 18, that should give you 1. Okay, so free float activity F will be 1. So meaning to say that you have 1 additional day before you finish together. So knowing this, you might see how you can arrange for your resources and so on. Okay, so far any question for that free float? Okay, so if no question, basically you have basically completed the precedence diagram. Okay, so the calculation for precedence diagram in numbered form. So in general, how we can conclude this, you have activities, okay, so whereby it starts from activity A ends at activity G with all the relationship that you have provided here, start to start, finish to finish, will lag, and so on, your project will end or will take 19 days to complete. Okay, so if your project starts from 0, with all the relationship combined together, your project will complete within the duration of 19 days. Okay, and your critical path, okay, so your critical activities here are basically activity A, activity B, C, E, G. Why? Because these activities are basically on the critical path with total float of 0. Okay, so activity here, your total float, if you look into this, late finish minus early finish is 1 for activity D. For activity F, your total float 19 minus 18 is 1. Okay, so, and you can see that your free float will never get larger than your total float. Okay, so you can see your free float for activity D is basically 0 here, and activity F is basically 1. So it is either similar or lower than activity your total float. It cannot be bigger than your total float. Okay, so, and when you talk about this, total float concerns the duration. Any delay on the critical activities, it will affect the total project duration. Okay, and for free float, it does not concern directly with your total project duration, but it concerns the next activity. Free float is about next activity. That's why your free float relates with the number of the next activity. What is the relationship and the next activity? Okay, so if you have 0 free float, meaning to say that you don't have any time between the activities. So for example, activity A to B, start to start 3, which means activity A and B, there is no time gap. Okay, so free float is 0, meaning to say A finish, B will start after 3 days. The time gap in between. But for activity F, okay, so it's supposed to finish together, but there is a time gap of 1 day. Okay, so by the time F finish 18, the total finish, the next activity will be 19. So you have 1 day in between. Let's say your resources tak cukup, you need that 1 day, you can have that 1 day, you are still within the time frame. You still are the, the time frame to complete together. Okay, so far any question on the entire calculation of precedence diagram? No question, eh? Okay, so if you look into the slides that you can find on the, can I just switch around? Can you see this is a different slide now? No. Or am I still at the same slide? Okay.
Yes. No.
All right. So let me just close this slide. Okay, so if you go through this slide, okay, so if you go through the notes that you can find in under my folder, basically it walks you through back the precedence diagram. Okay, so this would be part 4 of project planning. So actually part 3 was about CPM, but since we are not touching a lot on CPM, it's just I need you to know the difference between CPM and precedence. So I don't need you to know the calculation because you have done it at your diploma level, but I need you to know the difference between CPM and also precedence. How is it different? So that we have discussed in the previous class. Okay, so with part 4 is basically the calculation for precedence, and we have touched on all of this. Okay, so the labeling of precedence, early start, early finish, what it means. Okay, so the fundamentals of it. Okay, so the node, the lag time. Okay, so predecessor, successor, types of relationship, finish to start, okay, with lag and so on. So I think this we have actually gone through everything. Okay, so as a revision, you can just go through it back. Okay, so what is finish to start and so on. Okay. So these are just the examples. So I think I don't need to go through this again. Okay. So you may try this example on your own as well. Okay, total float and this example as well. Okay, with leg. Okay, so float. So this one we have gone through. And I think what I want you to do is basically try to calculate this in terms of the forward pass, backward pass, total float, and also free float for each activity. Okay, ignore this one first. Okay, so this one we'll do it in the next class on the date format. Okay, at this moment we will be calculating using numbering system. Numbering system provides you the duration, okay, but it does not provide you exactly when you're going to start, which date, and so on. So actually precedence diagram, it could allow the calculation using date form that we will do it later. Okay, but at this moment what I need you to do on your own is basically to create this diagram. Okay, so the notes you can get this from the folder under my name. Okay, so in UFuture project planning number 4. Okay, so go through this, create a network diagram based on this relationship, these activities given here, calculate the forward pass, calculate the backward pass, calculate the total float, and calculate the free float for each of the activities. Okay, and what I need you to do in the next class is basically have all the answers ready so that we can actually go through it together. Make sure that you have the answers ready in the next class. Okay, so that we can go through this together. So far, any question on this?
No.
So you need to know this by heart, because basically this will come out in your first test. Okay, so I'm not sure how the test will be. So basically it will be in your first test. So make sure that you know how the calculation goes by for precedence diagram, the total float, how do you calculate the free float, what are the critical activities, and so on, given that you have different relationship and so on. Okay, so make sure you go through this example, do the entire complete calculation until free float for each activity, and then we'll discuss in the next class. Okay, so far any question? Tak ada Okay, so for the next class, let me think okay, for the next class we'll discuss on this, and then we'll go to the introduction of the date format. The date format is similar to, I mean the way of calculation is similar, cuma is a little bit tricky sikit, because when you're talking about date, you cannot just add on the numbers as such, because you might have Sunday in between and so on. So you will need to understand date. One working day will be starting from morning until evening. So your early start of 1st May, for example, one working day, your finish will still be 1st May, tapi in the evening. Okay, so that one we'll conduct it later. But at this moment, I need you to understand by heart, how do you calculate in terms of the number form. Okay, so please do this, and we'll get back to this example, complete example. You must have your answer so that we can go through it together, and you can double check the answers you have with you. And then we'll complete the exercise on this, and then we'll move on to the date format. Okay? Okay, everybody. So any other question you have for me on this?
No.
Small.
Okay. All right. So if no, hopefully you can just get through back the recording. For those who have not gone through my last recording, please go through the recording. Okay, so because it plays a huge part on of this course of subject. Okay, so your precedent diagram is one of the main important components for project planning. So you need to know it by heart so that you know how actually or what has been translated in terms of the Gantt chart that people use on the site. Okay, so on the site they have Gantt chart ready, but what is the background relationship of the Gantt chart? You need to know that. Okay, so the fundamentals are this one. All right, so please go through the recordings and ensure that you understand. If you do not understand, try to gather back what you do not understand and please ask me in the next class. Okay. All right, so with that, I think we can end the class for today. Okay, so all right, thank you for your attention and I'll see you in the next class.